So there are three types of tenses: present tense, past tense and future tense. Under future tense, again it is simple future, future continuous, future perfect continuous. Depending on the subject, we use the do forms, that is do, does and did. I was dancing. I is singular, so I use the auxiliary verb was here. Hello everyone, I am Babita Thamaya, lecturer, Department of English, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru. In my last video, I had discussed about subject-verb agreement. In today's session, I'll be discussing about tenses. Tenses is a form of a verb that shows when something is happening or going to be happen in future. It plays a crucial role in English language. Let me tell you one thing, that tenses, parts of speech and articles are considered three formulas to learn basic English. As long as you are alive and as long as you speak English, it is very important to know these three formulas. So let's discuss with today's topic, that is tenses. So there are three types of tenses: present tense, past tense and future tense. Let's deal with all the three tenses in detail. So first I have taken past tense. What is this tenses? Why it is so important? And why did I tell you that tenses, parts of speech and articles, it's very important in your life? It's because it tells us about the action. About the action, whether you have done it before or whether you have done it now or you're going to do it in future. Each tenses are subdivided into 4 tenses. Firstly, I'll be taking the past tense. Under past tense is subdivided into 4 tenses, that is simple past, past continuous, past perfect and past perfect continuous. These are the 4 subdivisions of the past tense. Now let's see one by one. So first I have taken past tense. So past tense. Under the past tense, first was is simple past tense. So I have taken the word I danced. I have taken the word I danced. And what are the words which are read in colors here? So here I is the subject. So what is I? I is the subject. Here S stands for subject. S stands for what? S stands for subject. Remember one thing, subject, it could be either in a plural or in a singular, or it could be a noun or a pronoun. So here I is a subject. So danced is the past tense form of the verb. So the dance is the past tense form. Here I is a pronoun or a subject. I is a pronoun or a subject. I replace the word I here. Instead of I'll take it Naveen. So here the subject is changed. Instead of I, as I told you earlier, the subject, it could be in a noun or a pronoun. One more example. I danced. So I'll take the another word, I learned. I learned. So I is the subject here and learned. Learned is the past tense form of verb. Learn is the past tense form of the verb. Next. Past continuous tense. So here subject plus was or were plus verb plus ing. As you have learned formulas in mathematics, even in the same way you have formula in English also. Here S. So I is the subject here. So these two words, that is was or were, will be used depending on the singular or the plural form of the verb. And now, if you ask me what is this was or were also known as, it is also known as was or were. Was or were is known as auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verb or helping verb. Was or were is known as auxiliary verbs or helping verbs. So here, taken the same sentence for each tenses here. So was will be the auxiliary verb here, and verb, dance is the verb and it is in the ing form. So I was dancing. And here the past continuous tense is also known as progressive tense. Keep it in mind, the past continuous tense is also known as progressive tense. You need to observe the auxiliary verbs very carefully, because as auxiliary verbs changes, so do the tenses change. So now, because it's in a singular form, I. Now if I take they danced. If I take the word they, it is in the plural form. So you will use the auxiliary verb here as were. They were dancing. I hope you understood. See here, I was dancing. I is singular, so I use the auxiliary verb was here. Now I have taken the plural here. It is more than one, so they were. The auxiliary verbs changes. So when the auxiliary verbs changes, as I told, even the sentence, the tenses also keeps changing. Be very careful while using this auxiliary verbs. Next, past perfect tense. Past perfect tense, I have taken the word I had danced. So here, subject plus had plus verb. So here I will be the subject, had is the auxiliary verb, and the action verb is danced here. What happens here in the sense, the auxiliary verbs plays a key role in the tenses. Be very cautious while using these auxiliary verbs. So as I told, when the auxiliary verbs changes, so do the tenses also. A subject had plus V3. What is V3 here? V3 is the first form of the verb. First form of the verb danced, and it is the second form of the past tense and the third form of the past participle tense. For example, I'll change this word dance to eat. Eat is the first form of the verb, and ate will be the second form of the verb, that is in the past tense, and eaten will be the third form of the verb, that it is in past participle tense. For example, cook, cooked, cooked, cut, cut, cut. So these are the V3 verbs, that is the first form, second form and the third form. The next tense, past continuous tense. In the past continuous tense, here I is the subject, had plus been plus ing. So what happens here in the past perfect continuous tense in the sense, by clubbing both past continuous and past perfect tense, you need to club past continuous tense and past perfect tense to make it a past perfect continuous tense. So here what happens? Had been. When it comes to the past perfect continuous tense, you will use the word had been. So now I is the subject here, and here this is the auxiliary verb used here, had been, and it is in the ing form. The verb, past form of the verb is dancing. This is the past perfect continuous tense. So each tense is divided into 4 subtenses. So in the past tense, it is simple past, past continuous, past perfect continuous. Hope it's clear with you all. And the next tense is present tense. So here I have taken the same sentence for each and every tenses here. So in the previous slide, that is in the past tense, it was I danced. But when it comes to the simple present, it will be I danced. So I is the subject and dance is the present form of the verb. And the next, present continuous tense. I, she, they, am, is, are dancing. So here, I, she and they. These 3 words are subject. So it might be these 2 are in singular forms. This is in the plural form. As I told, when the subject changes, so has the auxiliary verbs also keeps changing. Don't forget that. Keep it in mind that when the auxiliary verbs changes, so do the tenses. So here, I, she and they is the subject. Am, is and are. These are the auxiliary verbs. These are the auxiliary verbs or helping verbs. So here what happens? So here I am. So it is, or she is. What is the auxiliary verbs used here? For the subject I, we use the auxiliary word am. I am dancing. She is dancing. They are dancing. Because these 2 are singular and it's in the pronoun. So what happens? It changes here. It will be I am dancing. If I take the word she, it will be she is dancing. They are dancing. Got it? See here, the auxiliary verbs is changed in all the 3 tenses here or all the 3 sentences. Moving on to the next tense, that is present perfect tense. So in the present perfect tense, I is the subject. This is the auxiliary verb. This is the verb. So here always in the present tense, subject and the verb remains the same in the present perfect tense. So the last one is present perfect continuous tense. So I is the subject here. Have been will be the auxiliary verb and dance. So it is subject plus have plus been plus verb plus ing. So subject is I, have been is the auxiliary verb, we is the verb and ing is the present form of the verb dance. This is about the present tense. And the last tense is future tense. Under future tense, again it is simple future, future continuous, future perfect continuous. In the future tense, we will just add the word will here. So if I move to the previous slide, we have written like I dance. But when it comes to the future tense, we will use we will add the word will here. So I will be the subject plus will plus verb. So here subject is I, the auxiliary verb is will and the dance is the verb, that is the future form of the word dance. So the next, future continuous tense. In future continuous tense, what happens? The auxiliary verb will never change if it is in a singular or in a plural, whether it's in a noun or a verb, it will never change. Will be, it remains as it is. It never changes in any of the tenses. That is, in the future continuous tense, the auxiliary verb will not change. If it is, I will be dancing, she will be dancing, they will be dancing. So this will remain the same. The helping verb never changes here in this tense. Future perfect tense. So I will have danced. I is the subject plus will plus have plus danced. So subject is I, will have been auxiliary verb, dance is the future form of the verb. And the last tense is your future perfect continuous tense. I will have been dancing. So here in the future tense, you can see for all the tenses, the word will is added here. Will be, will have been. So these are the three tenses and the subdivision of these tenses. Now let's see all the three tenses here. See that the words which are in red colors are the auxiliary verbs or the helping verbs. So, will be, will have been. Here it is, I am or she is, they are, have danced, have been dancing. When it comes to the past, it is was, had and had been. You need to be very cautious about these words which are red in color. It plays a key role in the tenses. Now let's move on to the positive and the negative sentences here. Before we move on to it, you need to know the do forms and the be forms. What are the do forms? The do forms are do, does, and did. So how are we going to use this? Depending on the subject, we use the do forms, that is do, does and did. Now what is the be forms? Be forms are like be, is, am, are, was, were, been and being. These are the be forms. From the examination point of view, this be forms is very important. Most of the time in your final examination, you will be expecting questions on be forms. So now we have the positive sentences here. I scored well in my exam. Remember one thing, always the positive tenses will be in the past tense. Here it's scored, it's not score. It should be in the past tense. Positive tenses always will be in the past tense. I scored well in the exam. I will score well in exams. Here in the first tense, it says that it's in the past tense. I have already scored. I scored well. It's already done. I scored well in my exam. The word scored here, it's already done, but always the positive sentence will be in the past tense. I scored well in exam. It's still happening. She's still saying that I will score well in my exam. The last one is I will score well in exam. It's in the future tense which has to happen, but always remember it should be in the past tense. Moving on to the next one, that is the negative sentence. When it comes to the negative sentence always will be in the present tense. So here is an example. I did not score well in exam. So here did not. It's a negative sentence, but here the word score is in the present tense. The next, I will not score well in exam. I will not score well. He's not sure that he's going to score a good marks. So he says, I will not score. I'm not going to score a good marks in my exam. But the word here, it's in the present tense. But the sentence is a negative sentence. But when you write it, the answer, it will be in the present tense. The word will be in the present tense. Hope it's clear. So now I have an example which I have taken it from the workbook. Now let's see the answers for this. One day a wolf at a stream, he a lamb who further down. The wolf made up his mind to eat the lamb, that he some excuse for doing so. He up to the lamb and said, "How dare you are muddy the water?" That I, the lamb replied, "I, how that can be, since the water of the stream from you to me and not from me to you." See, one day a wolf at a stream, he, a lamb, farther down. The wolf made up his mind to eat the lamb. So here, made already, the tense is in the past tense. So what happens when the passage itself is in the past tense? What happens? All the answers, whichever it's there in the bracket, will be in the past tense itself. Here, one day a wolf. Be, the do form of be is was. The wolf was drinking. Wolf was drinking at a stream. He see. See is the present tense and the past tense will be saw. Here there is no auxiliary verbs used here. Here you can see the be form, but there is no be form here. So you'll just write the past tense. He saw a lamb who be. Again there is a word be. Lamb who was further down. The wolf up his mind to eat the lamb. Here the wolf had decided to eat the lamb completely. But he thought, think is thought. But he thought that he will find. There is a word will becomes would. Would, found, find becomes found. Would found some excuse for doing so. He ran. He ran up to the lamb and said. So now here you should be very careful. You can see the next sentences is in the quotes, that is in the inverted commas. When the question is in the inverted commas, it is that it will be in the present tense. It is the universal fact. These are the exact words. So if the passage is in the past tense, all the answers will be in the past tense. It doesn't matter that everything should be in the past tense, but when the question is in the inverted commas, the answer automatically changes to the present tense, because always the quotes will be the fact, it will be the universal truth or the exact words. How dare you muddy the water that I be drink, that I am. Am is a present tense. I am drinking. That I am drinking. The lamb replied, I, here in the bracket, do not see. Don't or do not. I don't see how that can be, since the water of the stream be run. The water of the stream is running. Is running from you to me and not from me to you. I have another question for you from the workbook. It was curious trunk. So here in the first tense, in the first sentence itself, you will get to know that the question or the passage is in the past tense. It was curious trunk when the lock be pressed. When the lock was pressed. When the lock was pressed, the trunk would fly. The merchant's son crouched. So here there is no be forms here. So you'll write crouched. Crouched inside, pressed the lock. Pressed the lock and up, fly. Fly will become flew. They trunk through the chimney into the clouds. After a while, the lower part cracked, which frightened. Frightened becomes frightened. Frightened him, for if it had break. Break becomes broken. It's not breaking. It should be had broken. Had broken into he will have. Here you have two halves here, and it is quite interesting. So what happens here? In this, there are three words and two words are the same. That is have. Into will becomes would. Would. And here in these two have, one have will remain the same. Into he would have, another have becomes had. He would have had a nasty fall. However, it will become descended. Descended safely, and he found. And he found himself in Turkey. So this is all about the tenses, do forms, be forms, that is the positive and the negative tenses. I hope it's clear with you all with the tenses. So in my next session, I'll be discussing about dialogue writing. Until then, stay home, stay safe, stay educated. Thank you.